Easter. Today's Easter Sunday, and it's also a time when Rastafari marks one of the most diabolical, atrocious, egregious times in Rastafari's history. On this island, we're talking about the Coral Gardens Massacre. First heard about the Coral Gardens Massacre around about 1992, and this happened 1962. You understand where we're coming from, 1963. And I heard about it for the first time, having done history in school, having, been what I thought was a pretty well-read person when it comes to Jamaica's history. But I didn't hear about it until 1991, 92, about 91, I think about 1991. And we have been since that time, every year on this program, from the minute we heard about it, gathering the information, the literary archaeology in this space. That's what we've been doing for all those years. It culminated in 2015 with the March on Gordon House. So I, with the assistance and the help of Rastafari Houses and Mansions in Jamaica, led that protest against an unjust justice system. But before that, and that was a massive protest. There was hundreds of people that turned out to march on Gordon House. And the march was a little bit more than just a protest against an unjust justice system, but was the continuing oppression of Rastafari in Jamaica, discrimination of Rastafari in Jamaica, and also for reparations. And shortly after that, the public defender was asked to look into the matter and to provide a report, which by this time it was Arlene Anderson. But remember that long before she came in as the public defender who was looking into those issues, Howard Hamilton was the first public defender who started examining the issue of the Coral Gardens Massacre. And by that time, most of the programs that I had gathered then, I passed on to him. And he was on this program many times, along with Junior Manning. It was just a handful of us in the early days, really fighting for justice for Rastafari. And so he was the first one, and he had done a mountain of work. The body of work done by Howard Hamilton must be recognized, because I think at some point, Arlene Anderson must have tapped into the work. And yeah, because I did interview her about that from time to time. But the first public defender, and then the second public defender, who was Witter, Attorney Witter, former judge, was also someone who took this up in a very serious way. And he spent years and years doing the research. We also passed on to him a lot of the archival material that I had gathered since 1991 all the way up until his tenure, of the stories that I had collected, the interviews that I had done along with Junior Manning, and by this time, Ika Tafari and Bongo Frank and Mama Enid, and just the wide, the amount of survivors who were still alive at that time. And I'm very, we saw the Prime Minister later on, because this we're talking about years and years of pressure, and years of work. I remember that Junior Manning and myself had many arguments, many quarrels in these studios here at Area Fair, many quarrels, because there was in the beginning, even though the information needed to get out and Rastafari was committed to getting the information out, Junior Manning, along with a great portion of Rastafari, did not want reparations. They didn't ask for it. They didn't want it. And I must take responsibility for pushing and for cajoling and for literally bulldozing my way into that space to say, listen, reparations are due. And it doesn't have to be Bob Marley's Revelation. Oh, I'm doing so many things. I wish I could find Revelation now. Never let a politician do you a favor, or they will want to control you forever. Is there any way that you could play it, Peter? It has to be played from here? So one of the things that I said to Junior Manning in the early 1990s, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, going through was, listen, I think that there's a way to do this where Rastafari doesn't have to appear as if you're selling out. It doesn't have to appear as if you're going against your principles, which is to say, this is your right. This is a right. This is your God-given human right because of what happened at Coral Gardens and across Jamaica. So I take full responsibility for convincing Junior Manning and the wider Rastafari brethren to insist on reparations for what happened at Coral Gardens. And I also stand in the gap, and I acknowledge the role that IRFM played, Carl Young, who gave us the space to be the advocate and the activist for reparations for Rastafari for what happened at Coral Gardens. Every year from 1991, we have around this time Rastafari survivors and others in the studio for 4 hours, 3 hours, 2 hours, talking about this and not forgetting our moral responsibility to remember, our commitment to remember. So that when Andrew Holness announced, and then before we go there was something else that we did, which was that the idea of reparations is interesting because there's so many ways that we couldn't quantify what was due to Rastafari. So we had all of these conversations with the public defenders over time. It was never really quantified. At the end of the day, it wasn't and still isn't sufficient. And, but that when the announcement was made that this would happen, that Rastafari would be given land, which is one of the things we had asked for, and reparations, that we had the conversations in this space. We congratulated the Prime Minister at the time for taking the step, because many others were literally dragged over the coals and carried to the space and the place where they should have taken the decision to pay reparations over to Rastafari, and they didn't. I'm talking about prime ministers along the way. But the Andrew Holness administration did, and I remember we carried in this space the announcement that he made, and we've been following this up from time to time, well, every year actually. It was shocking to me that this was the first and only year since 1991 that I didn't hear from any member of the Coral Gardens group, Benevolent Society. When Aikatafari was named as took over from Junior Manning to lead the Benevolent Society, it wasn't a Benevolent Society at the time, but we had formed a Benevolent Society in Portland for the struggle and the fight for Winifred Beach, and we used that model for the fight for Fisherman's Beach in Ocho Rios, which we lost. And so I had a discussion with Aikatafari about doing the very same thing with Coral Gardens Group to make this a benevolent society and to make it easier, if you will, for Rastafari to demand what we're talking about here, reparations and so on from the government. So I had a discussion with Ika Tafari, and I hope to talk to him, if not today, then some other day, about his own feelings. Junior Manning is not here. I have most of the interviews that I did with Junior Manning over the years. I still have those interviews. But I'd like to have a discussion with Ika Tafari about how he feels now, where he stands, what his thinking on what has happened and how it has happened. It's the first year that I did not hear from Rastafari about what's happening at Coral Gardens. I learned it in the media that the land titles were given over. I learned it in the media that that even at the time of the payover of the reparations, and it's really quite strange. I'm kind of used to it, but I still had to say that because this is crazy. So, but anyway, I'm thankful that the land titles have been handed over. This is a fight that we started in 1991 along with Rastafari. We marched. We didn't only lead the marches, we organized. And when I said we, I mean the royal we. Organized those marches for reparations for Rastafari. So I'm very happy that we're seeing the handover right now. But I do say to Rastafari, do not forget the old honoring my moral obligation to remember, as we are remembering the massacre at Coral Gardens this morning. Let me tell you something. I just saw the massacre at Coral Gardens. I'm going to get all kind of goose pimples, and there's a reason for that. Because we understand that there are those who are trying to rewrite the history, to say that no one died during that massacre at Coral Gardens. And this is coming from the very highest places in Jamaica. But I want to put a stop to that madness at this minute. And to say to those who are saying that, we will call your name shortly if you do not stop. Stop it. That is senility. That is wickedness. And tribalism has no place. Political tribalism has no place in Rastafari business. I speak as an African-centered Pan-African who understands the role and the place of Rastafari in all of that. I don't want to get carried away. I'm about to get carried away. I'm about to get on that. But I just want to put people on notice. Those who are saying that no one died, or that just few people, or no one. It was a massacre across Jamaica. I have been doing these interviews since 1991. As I said earlier, all the information that we've gathered over time, we have given to first Howard Hamilton, the public defender, then public defender Witter, the judge, and all those interviews, I've had people, grown men, breaking down, and women, and crying in this space. Bonga Frank, how you do, my brother? Bonga Frank was with me in the studio a few years ago, and he started remembering the tragedy at Coral Gardens, and he cried. Big man ball right here, so. And now we have people in the highest places of Jamaica. And you are the ones who are influencing and impacting and writing history. And this is why history is about power. We say history is our alibi, but we understand that history is also about power. And this is, if the Minister Grange, I think, probably has an obligation to speak publicly about what's coming from her spaces. All right, we have a lot to get through this morning. My sister Masani Montiku is going to be coming on in a few minutes. Let me tell you who else we've got coming up inside of the program this morning. We're going to be talking about ports and power, port privatization in Jamaica, transshipment ambitions in Jamaica, and the quiet surrender of Jamaica's maritime sovereignty. Ports are power. China knows that. As a matter of fact, this whole kerfuffle that we're having right now with the Strait of Hormuz and the Gate of Tears and the Panama Canal and the Canal de Suez and the Red Sea and you just take out your map again and look at that entire region between North Africa, from the Horn of Africa, coming all the way down and across Saudi Arabia, Iran, of course, and where Djibouti, look at Djibouti also, look at Yemen, all of that, all the way over to Egypt and down to, remember, now, Egypt is connected to Israel by land, you know. This is something that people don't understand. Egypt is connected to Israel by land, not just by sea. You can walk from Egypt straight into Israel. And we have to understand the geography when we talk about the geopolitics of what's happening now. And all of that is about, a lot of that is centered around ports, Strait of Hormuz, Panama Canal, and I'm jumping from over there to over here, so, which is to say the Panama Canal is also part of the geopolitical war and the geopolitical tensions that we are experiencing right now. Across the world, we're having this conversation about who owns what port and who has the power to own these ports. So ports are really spaces, material manifestation points of power. And we are seeing that played out right now as we continue and heighten the rollout of the new economic world order, the new world order, and as we continue inside of World War III. There's something they're telling us that we're not in World War III. Believe me, we're in World War III. Last week I spoke about that when I told you how many countries are already involved in this war. Obviously, the obvious is the United States and also Israel, of course. But Europe is very much involved in this war. They are pretending that they're not. But UK, France, Italy, Germany, Greece, Portugal, they're all involved in this war. It is a world war. We're going to come back to that later on. So we're going to be talking about ports as power. Jamaica has said, through the Prime Minister, that we want to make Jamaica the greatest transshipment port in the region. It's not a bad ambition, but we're going to ask some questions this morning about what that means generally for us as a people and for the region. So we're going to be speaking with Dr. Francesca Savoldi, who will be joining us around about 7:30. We'll have that conversation. Dr. Pernell Bell is joining us again this morning because we're going to be continuing our discussion with her. She's an education psychologist. We're going to be talking about parenting this morning and some of the ethical practices. We're going to be looking at the parenting in a time of artificial intelligence, parenting in a time of the convergence of the digital technologies. So she'll be coming on to talk to us about that. We're also going to be linking live from the Love and Harmony cruise. Kashima is there. Courtney Mack is there. My cousin is there. We call her cousin now because we're sure we're related, but we're not finding it out yet. Tristan Wilson is there. And the team, Nicholas Evans on the cruise. So we'll be linking with the cruises, with the Love and Harmony cruise this morning. I saw a clip of Barry's Hammond. I think he was performing. Was that it, Peter? You saw that clip with Ben? It was on your thing, though. No, you're sharing. Anyway, I saw a clip of Barry Hammond performing. It looked like him a perform, and it looked good. Me just said that, right? Anyway, it looks like the cruise is going on really, really good, the Love and Harmony cruise. So thank you, Kishima and the team, Nicholas Evans and the team, will be joining with you later on this morning. Once again, Shanice Janke is at the telephone operator's desk. And she's doubling up this morning. She's in-studio broadcast assistant. Peter Broadber, who every time you see me look off camera and look to my right, is Peter I'm talking to, because Peter is head cook and bottle washer inside here. As usual, he is responsible for so much. He's producing this entire segment, as well as operating the console, as well as operating the cameras. He's doing all of the ground, the floor manager, the videographer, the producer. Is a very, very slim team. But we're doing very well, I think. And thank you so much for joining us. So Masani Montiku is a playwright. She's a director. She's a journalist, a novelist, and a researcher. She has written, directed, and produced several radio plays, stage plays, and music videos. You must have seen them around. She has directed music videos such as Silhouette, Serious Judgment, Shoeshine, Up on Eglinton, and Danger to the Public. She has produced and directed dramas such as Youth Against Violence, Cycle of Violence, and It Is Not All Right. My sister is a journalist, as I told you. She holds a diploma in journalism from Homburg College and 2 degrees from York University, BA Honours in Creative Writing, and MES degree in Environmental Studies. She's currently completing her Master's in Education. You can correct me if that's true, Masani, at York University. She owns and operates Masani Productions since 1980. And Masani Productions is what we're telling you that we come up against all the time. But good competition. The company promotes, produces, and distributes books, films, videos, and records. Since 1993, she has been the director and producer of the annual music event Rastafest Reggae Festival and Sister Fest since 1996. She has coordinated the Rastafari International Conference held in Toronto in 1982 and coordinated the second International Rastafari Conference held in Jamaica in 1983. She received the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2013 and the Order of York Centre Award in 2015. She's joining me live online. She's also, check us out on YouTube and Facebook. You can see our sister Masani, because we're streaming live. Masani, my sister, how are you doing?
Give thanks for that introduction and give thanks for the overview that you were talking about being in World War III. And I agree with you, we are in World War III.
We are, my sister, we are. And I hope you can come back and we have a further conversation on that when you have more time.
Yes.
Because I think we have to look at and analyze things through our own lenses and our own understanding and our own ability to deep think, as the ancients did, and we not depend upon what them I tell. We're looking with our third eye. You're in Jamaica right now, my sister. What are you doing in Jamaica? Tell us about why you're here now.
I'm in Jamaica now, but I come here I live in Toronto since 1974.
Yes.
But every so often we come down 2-3 times a year, right? So this time around, though, we do something called a Rastafest showcase in Jamaica for the last 8 years. What does that mean is that we showcase Canadian artists in Jamaica, funded through factors through the Canadian government. So with these Canadian artists to perform at various events. For example, they were at Bad Friday. Today we're going to be in Portland performing. Tomorrow is a big day. And that's our anniversary, and when we celebrate Masani Production 46th anniversary
46.
And Rastafari 33 anniversary. And Kabu, why I keep on stressing the numbers is because to focus on something for 46 years a long time,
yes,
right?
Yes.
To focus on something for 33 is a long time. Mm-hmm. I didn't do it by myself, obviously, but I'm the lead in these 2 areas, right? And when I did journalism in 1977, I was told by the white coordinator that blacks do not graduate from journalism. Mm-hmm. I was told that I'm not going to graduate. Remember, that's like 19 years old, something like that.
What year was that? What year was that?
This would have been 1977.
Wow.
So I did journalism from 1977 to 1980.
Yes.
And the first year of my program in 1977, the white coordinator said blacks do not graduate from journalism. Back then, journalism was very prestigious. Nobody's a journalist. If you take a camera, you're a journalist.
Of course,
But back in
you have a
the
phone, you're a journalist.
yeah.
And we
But back
welcome this
then,
new journalism too. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
yeah, so
Yes.
back then you go to school, you get trained properly. So I'm
Yeah.
from the old school.
Yeah.
So when I was told that I was gonna go to grad because I'm black, I said, you know what? I'm gonna create my own company and hire somebody looking like me, black Rasta woman or Rasta brethren. That's why Masani Production was created.
Yes.
So I put my journalism experience and training into mass media, and Masani Production now is a reality. 46
Wow.
years later. So
And
that's
it's such,
Masani.
and Masani Production is such a powerhouse, because as I said before, I know that at some point you and me we were going to have a conversation because because we intersect, across all that we do. But I think this is the first time I'm having a conversation with you. Masani Productions, I've been aware of this, and I think all of Jamaica, all of the Pan-African, Rastafari, African conscious, and just cultural and even not so cultural world know about Masani Productions and the work that you do globally. So congratulations on that. Another thing that you've been working on, along with the RMO and Sister Karida and the team, I know, is looking out and for Rastafari care, especially generally, but especially in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. You've done a few things already. I want you to talk me through those and what are the additional work that is being done and what is needed.
Okay, so I belong to. Okay, so I own Studio M. Studio M is a multimedia studio in an area called Little Jamaica. So when hurricane hit last year, we used our event, because we always using our event to do good cause, right? Even Rastafest, during Rastafest we'll raise, canned goods and donate to the food bank, for example, or we do whatever, because we do good events, we get a good crowd, and what we do is say, how can we help? So when Melissa hit last year, we did 3 fundraising activities through our Little Jamaica night market. Little Jamaica is the area that we're located, right? That area. So when we're raising all this, I say, no, I gotta do something for the Rasta community, because what we was raising was really for the general population, right? So we raised the donation, we sent it to the Jamaica Canadian Association in Toronto. But this time around, I said, I gotta do something for the Rasta community using Rastafest. Rastafest is 33 years old. It's a free festival. It's sponsored in part by the Canadian government and Masani Production, because Masani Production, we still have to finance it 33 years later. So I said, I wanted to do something for the Rasta community in Jamaica, because I realized that the help was not trickling down to the Rasta community. So I reached out to RMO, and when they were doing their Webathon, the Triple R Webathon,
Yes.
Student M was one of the media organization that had promoted it. So it's a continuation of what we did when we did a Webathon with them. Now on a bigger scale, we say, okay, so Rastafest is coming in August 14, 15, and 16. We know we're gonna get a big crowd because we usually do. Last year we had Leroy. Last year we had Johnny Clark and Luther Baruka. The year before we had Leroy Simmons. So we're going with foundation artists.
Yes.
So I said, how can we use Rastafest big crowd to generate revenue for the Rasta community in Jamaica? And here come the Triple R, with RMO, good partnership, good collaboration. Now we're encouraging ones now during the festival and before the festival to go to the GoFundMe at the Instagram page of RMO and start donating. And I want to say this thing, Rasta, we're not beggars. We don't beg people nothing.
I know that I was talking about that just earlier.
We're not beggars.
Yes, I had that trouble. I call it trouble, but I had that fight and tug of war with Junior Manning, Rasta Isa J, in the early days of the Coral Gardens, when we're talking about Coral Gardens, the Coral Gardens massacre, to say, no, it's not begging. Reparations is not begging. So there are some cases that we have to draw the line to say, this is what we need to do and this is what we're due. And so that I hear you mention the GoFundMe page. So I want you to go back to that because I know you're referencing the not begging in relation to the GoFundMe page. Tell us about why the GoFundMe, where it is, and we understand it is not begging, but we understand that we are in a critical time. Not just Rastafari, but so many Jamaicans have suffered great loss during Hurricane Melissa and are still struggling to just find your footing. And I think this is the GoFundMe page is also related to that. So tell us about that.
Well, I know the GoFundMe was set up by RMO, and it's on the Instagram page. What we are doing as Rastafest, because we're on the Rastafest to the M side of things. One, we're promoting the initiative, the Triple R the initiative, and two, we're using our platform, which is a festival, to draw awareness to what's happening in Jamaica with the elders. Because remember now, we're giving something to the community. We're giving a free festival.
Yeah.
So we're giving you a free festival. You're gonna come and have a good time. In the daytime we have ITAL food fest. You're gonna come and get ITAL food for free. You gotta learn how to make ITAL food in the other night. You're gonna have concert. So if you're giving all these things for free, the Rastafest family have no problem, donating some money in return. The Rastafest family has no problem even bringing goods in return for children and elders. They have no problem with that. So we do every year, regardless of what, regardless of hurricane.
Yes.
We
Okay.
do it no matter what.
Oh, Rastafest. Yes. So these are, we're talking about two different things now, and two different GoFundMe. I think I maybe convoluted both. That there are two different GoFundMe pages.
No, it's one GoFundMe page. We don't have a GoFundMe page. No. We don't have a GoFundMe page. We are collaborate with RMO and their GoFundMe initiative.
All right, totally understand that now. Do you know where can we find the RMO GoFundMe initiative?
Instagram. Everything is on Instagram.
Okay.
Sister Karina next text me. I said, remember now the Instagram page. So it's on the Instagram page. Everything is on the RMO Instagram page.
So RMO IG page.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
all right.
exactly.
So a little bit more about Rastafest now, because as you said earlier, you're talking about initiatives of 46 years, 33 years. I mean, IRFM is 35 years old. So when you think about it, one was 2 years into IRI, and the other one was almost 15 years before IRI, if you ask me. So you're talking, I understand the commitment, the persistent, that must have gone into this to bring it to where it is, 46 years. I mean, that's not a chicken business. So talk to us about the Rastafest itself, both what you're going to be doing here in Jamaica and then what's coming up in August.
Okay, so what we're doing tomorrow, April 6th, we always celebrate Masani production of my Earth Day. So tomorrow is actually my Earth Day.
Well, happy solar return to you, my sister. Wow. Yeah.
So tomorrow is actually my gift thanks.
Yes.
So I usually celebrate my company's birthday on my Earth Day, right?
Yes.
It is April 6th, no matter when it falls, because sometimes it falls during the Easter weekend, sometimes before Easter, after Easter, but it's always April 6th.
Right.
So tomorrow will be my Earth Day. Celebrating my company's achievement in the 46 years, and I keep on remembering the white man telling me I'm not going to graduate as a journalist because I'm black. So I think when you have that kind of motivation, to say, oh yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong. And within the 46 years, we're going through a lot of trials and tribulations. But now where we are now, we have a lot of young people that are amongst us. As a matter of fact, we have some people right here in Jamaica. 15 of us came down. We came to the Rastafest showcase, as I was mentioning before.
Right.
So 7 artists came down, and we have a production team, and we also have a band. So in total, about 15 Canadian and musicians came down with me. Once a year we do this. Mm-hmm. Now, why I'm mentioning this is that these artists, this program are funded through the Canadian government factor. Now we get funding, we get in part funding because it's never full funded.
Yes.
It's always partial funded. The other part comes from Masani production because we are committed to, as I said, to showcase Canadian artists and Jamaican artists. So it's a cultural exchange between both countries. Mm-hmm. So we have Jamaican artists coming up to Rastafest, Canadian artists come down to promote themselves, right? Yes. That's the company side. We also produce, because we have a recording studio in Toronto. Mm-hmm. So we're producing albums now, we're managing artists, we have a booking agent, we also do video, and we're doing a movie. Now, earlier you mentioned me being a playwright. I have two novels, Dread Culture and Toshiba with Love. Toshiba with Love is a Rasta love story. Dread Culture is a combination of my three plays of what is happening in Toronto from the 70s to the present. I'm adapting these two novels right now to film. So we're moving now that Rasta Fest is on its own, doing its thing, we're moving into the film section of the company now, which is where my love is, because I'm more a playwright, director, producer.
Yes.
So now that Rastafest has been established 33 years. I call Rastafest a giant because that's a big one. That's the one that draws all my resources, all my attention. Now that I have young people involved and running it, and I say running it, my daughter Jem, she's 26 years old. She has young people. They say, Mom, they'll say, Masani, it's our time now.
Yes.
And I think the problem, Kabu, is that we do not pass on the baton to the young people. And I have to stress that it's important to pass on the baton, because you know what, the young people, they have the energy, they have the drive. We have the wisdom, but they have the energy and the drive.
Masani,
so at First, you see a lot of young people, and they're all paid. I put them on payroll, and I employ them for the summer, and I say run with it.
I applaud you for that.
Yes,
I have been having a conversation. Just remember what you're about to say. I was having a conversation with my husband just 2 days ago, because and I was looking at choreograms. Masani was saying I'm having this conversation with my husband, and it was just upon reflection, looking at where we have come and how we have come as a nation, and over the years, this is a conversation we have had in this space, right, about passing on, as you said, the baton to the youth, and to ensure that there's continuity in whether it is the struggle, the fight for liberation, independence, or just to be part of that which is going to get us fully independent and fully liberated. And I'm very concerned about the Rastafari in terms of the youth, how the youth are engaging with Rastafari. So I came up through this whole thing in the 1990s, right, where there was this conversation started, but at the same time you had a lot of young people driven by the music in particular, because those were the early days when Capleton and them talking, everybody was saying Jah, in the reggae music, and that to me we saw a peak, if you will, in the youth membership or movement of Rastafari. So just looking through my critical eyes as usual, deep thinking, I am not necessarily seeing that right now. And it's not just with Rastafari. It is with a lot of the cultural spaces in which we engage with, that our children, the millennials, if you will, we're using those terms just for sake of the argument, and the Gen Zs seem to be stepping away. And I want you to give me your own personal perspective on the extent to which our young people are moving away from the principles, if you will, the ideas, the ideology of Rastafari, of African-centeredness, into something else. Is this a permanent thing as far as you're seeing, or is this just another cycle?
It's a very good question, a very loaded question, and I tell you why. When we enter Rastafari, when I went to Rastafari in the 70s, I landed in Toronto in 1974, a teenager, maybe 16 years old. 1 week in Toronto, I was downtown with a placard demonstrating at 16 years old. Wow. You don't have 16-year-old demonstrating right now about injustices. Why was I demonstrating at 16 years old in Toronto? Because a white man killed a black youth. He said the first black person he's gonna kill. And he killed a 16-year-old black youth. This was my first, remember I said just land in Toronto, that's the fresh off the boat, So there was September 12, 1974, land in Toronto. 1 week later, I was downtown, my placard demonstrating.
That is some serious activism.
But you know why? Because all the school kids, a handful of black kids in my high school were downtown demonstrators. I went with them. You know what I'm saying? That was my introduction to activism in Toronto in the black community. So the difference though between that in 1974 to now is that black youth are more focusing on I should say black youth are more focusing on becoming millionaires through social media. You have a handful that's there. So the community work, the volunteer work, all those things that we do back, that we did back in the 70s, youth are not interested in that. I have young people that we hire for the summer. As soon as the paycheck is finished, they're not sticking around. They're there for the paycheck. You understand what I'm saying? So the difference between youth and back then, in the 70s, and now, is all about making the money. And I guess I understand where they're coming from. Because let's be real, they see the elders, like people like me and other people struggling. I say, Mom, we don't want to struggle like you. We're not going to pay no sacrifice like you. We're not going to do none of that. They see what we're doing, and in their mind, we failed. We failed them. Because they don't see there's a financial gain. And they figure that, why would you be doing stuff for 45 years and not making no money? You should be doing, you should be 46 years and not making the money. You're doing an event for 33 years and not making the money. Why are you doing it? I've heard that questions all the time.
Can I me too, and I totally get the point you're making. And as you just said, I understand also where the youth are coming from, how we use the tools. There's a young brother out of the UK who's using TikTok to just carry speeches from Mwalimu Marcus Messiah Garvey. And I thought, oh, we need so many more of these youths who can use a tool for that. But I do understand the point you're making. I'm seeing it myself. As a matter of fact, it was so frightening to me 2 years ago that I came in this space and called for a ban on TikTok in Jamaica until we sort ourselves out because of where that was carrying our young people. But let me ask you, how do we reach our young people? I'm going to put this not just with Rastafari, because we see this, my mother's a Christian. I hear her talk about this very same thing in the church, right? So it seems that young people are going in a direction away from, as my father would call it, the old landmark. Rastafari is also experiencing that. But how do we possibly reach our young people? Because when we look, for example, at the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel, the house has been on rest for on a rest, so that people don't misunderstand what I'm saying, for the last since the 1980s, right? 1980 something, and all they have are financial meetings, so that in and the 12 tribes of Israel represented a space where young people used to find a way, a doorway, a pathway into Rastafari in a serious way. So there is that. Then we have all the other mansions that when you go into the other mansions and you look, when you participate in the events, the elders are there and they're holding this thing together, but the youths are not there. What is it that is keeping them away, and how do we appeal to them, even in this age of digital technology going into artificial intelligence or anti-intelligence?
Here's the thing, we don't even get young people at the Rasta Fest, that's a fact. And I've heard Masani, boy, you bring too much old artists. You need to bring some younger artists. I hear that all the time. Because the Rasta Fest is a roots and culture festival. It's a foundation, our artists are a foundation artists. I mean, Johnny Clark have been there 3 times, Mighty Diamonds 3 times, Levi Sibyl, Stone, Rebel Africa, all of them. I couldn't name Everton Blend, all of them have been at the Rasta Fest. So it's a roots and culture festival. So because we don't get young people at the festival, when I say young people now, when I say young, we're talking from, let's say, 21 to maybe 30. That age group. So we get the under 21 because they come with their parents. We get the over 30 because they're into the roots and culture. So we get from 30 to like the 70s, 80s. So we don't have that. We have a big gap when it comes to reaching out to young people during the festival, and we acknowledge that. Yes. That it's not just a Rasta Fest thing or a black thing. No. We're not attracting the young people.
Yes.
So how we do bring our young? We create employment. As I said before, we create employment. We have a program called Youth Talk. Youth Talk is strictly young people, 25, 26-year-old. We have an internet radio station, studentradio.com. So through our internet radio...
That was the name of my first radio program as a student at JBC Radio Northeast. Yes, Youth Talk. Yeah.
Youth Talk.
Youth Talk, yes.
Why UTE Youth?
Yes, okay. Mine was properly Youth Talk.
Yes. So we're
JBC.
Utah
Yeah,
Patwa. So
JBC
through the
Band.
Utah program
Yeah.
now, we have a showcase. So we use, and don't have to be reggae, because you have hip hop, we have Afrobeat, we have all sort of genre.
Right.
So the Rasta Fest is a foundation reggae thing, right?
Yes.
But we also, every month we have events in Toronto. Little Jamaica Night Market, we have the multicultural. FIFA is coming to Toronto, for example. The games is coming in
Right,
Toronto for
right,
2 weeks.
right,
So during that 2 week, we have a big event happening that we're organizing.
right.
FIFA. We're collaborating, we're getting funding for the city of Toronto. We're having a huge multicultural event. So our
Wow.
thing is not just a Rasta reggae thing.
Yes.
Our thing is more community
Yes.
based. So
I think that's
yeah.
I think you have the right strategy, because this is something that we have been struggling with in Jamaica in terms of not just Rastafari but just Pan-Africanism culturally speaking, where young people are not necessarily gravitating to the space anymore. Reggae music too, interestingly enough, even though you have some, you talk about the 30 and over. And because we have new forms of music that the young people have, we don't even know some of them. I think the last one me here was trap. I don't know. I mean, what is there another one after that, Peter? All right, so trap with there now. So and the point I'm making is to go there with them, because as a journalist, and you know that, and a presenter for years, I mean, this is what IRFM did for many years. We looked at the landscape, saw where people were going, understood that we have to keep the core, which is reggae music and the people of Jamaica, but also understanding where young people were, what was appealing to the youth, and to go there with them and to bring them back to the space. So I think that strategy is excellent. I hope that in the conversations, because we have these celebrations every year for or the observations every year, and many more too, Rastafari observations, and to just go back to Rastafari, is that what happens to the conversations? You were part of the coordinated Second International Rastafari Conference. That's all the way back in 1983. And I'm wondering, out of, if we need more of these, those are talk shops, but I'm not quite sure what come out of them, because we know this with Pan-Africanism generally. Do we need more of these to kind of figure out a strategy which is more centralized, as the Majesty says, organized and centralized, in terms of how we bring our youth back? I heard you clearly, employment as one, but is there also a need for this space to have for Rastafari to come together, to have a conversation, and out of that conversation a strategy for how we go forward?
Well, the thing is, right, we don't just do employment, we also do counseling and reasoning. We use our events to deal with issues such as, for example, mental illness and domestic violence. These are two areas that we decide that we want to focus on. And I mean, there's so much thing to focus on, but we chose those two. So when we do Sister Fest, for example, Sister Fest is my favorite festival, even though Rasta Fest is my biggest festival. Sister Fest is my favorite festival because we always talk about International Women's Day, and we look at gender-based violence. So so through Sister Fest, we talk about gender-based violence, the workshop around gender-based violence, we draw attention and all that. We also October 10th is World Mental Health Day. October 10th, we do workshops around mental health, mental illness, that kind of stuff. So we touch on a lot of issues, you know what I'm saying? And we use the art to deal with issues. Mental illness is a big one for us. Domestic violence is a big one for us. Youth employment. So, we're creative and I think because of my experience working as a community worker back in the 70s, because I used to work with, in my day job, let's say, when I graduated, I used to work for the UNIA, the Marcus Garvey Association in Toronto back in 81, 82. My day job was work with black prisoners, lifers. I know what to meet a 25-year-old youth serving life. That was my day job.
So I hear the point you're making, Sister Masani, which is to build it out for community. And when you build it out for and create the space for community, that they will come.
Yes.
Yes.
So and because we have a brick and mortar space, through the M, as I said, we're right smack in the middle of Little Jamaica. So we're in the middle of everything, So and we work with the community as a large, because we're being gentrified. I don't know if you're anybody familiar with Little Jamaica in Toronto, but why it's called Little Jamaica, because in the 70s, Jamaicans went there and developed it. Now you're talking $500,000 condos that nobody can own. It's been gentrified totally. So we're not our fight for survival as a community in Toronto. So Rastafest is within Little Jamaica. Everything we do is within Little Jamaica because we were trying to revitalize the Little Jamaica community, but through the arts, through what we're doing.
Yes.
So we're at a bigger scale. You know, the developers are coming in, taking our space, building up condos, squeezing out black people. We had 200 black businesses. We're down to like 50 black business owners now. So we have lost a lot of business. So even to own a black business is very difficult. We're not getting the big loans like other race that called in our name here. They go to the bank, their friends in the bank, they get the loan, the $500,000, $1 million to set up a company. We don't get that kind of opportunity as black business owners. So my fight is not just Rasta, my fight go beyond Rasta, my fight is on the black community.
Yes, I totally hear you. And so it's a leadership at a wider level, or leaderfulness, if you will, at a wider level, which doesn't just focus on the community immediately, but I mean the Rastafari community, but the wider community. I think this is how we should take a leaf over to your book. You know, the model, I think that is that. The question that arise many times in Jamaica is, a comparison, for example, that is made between Rastafari and, say, the 90s Nation of Islam and what they managed to do, what Rastafari hasn't managed to do. But then you look at even the fight just for recognition, for reparations. Rastafari is still fighting for the right for their children to go to school with locks. And even though that right is enshrined, you still have Rastafari, you still have children who can't go, and I'm not going to say Rastafari, but you still have Jamaican children who can't go to school with locks because you have to say you are Rastafari. You know, it's an interesting situation that we have on the island here in Jamaica. Let me move on quickly just to ask you, Sister Masani, I know you have your ears to the ground when it comes to our people's business. Have you looked at and I know this is taking you by surprise, we didn't tell you we were going to talk to you about it, but what's coming out of St. Kitts in terms of the decision made there by St. Kitts enshrining the Rastafari faith into law? They had gone one step before, which is to make it basic human rights, but now we're hearing that this now is enshrined into law. Have you been looking at that?
Yes, definitely, and I commend the St. Kitts government for that. If you notice, he said that his mother's a Rasta woman.
I heard that. Yes.
And of course, you know, that's commendable, you know. Said, but you know, when we look at Jamaica though, and you know, Jamaica have the oldest Rasta community, let's be real, in the Caribbean, it's still backward. The Jamaican government is still very backward in terms of how Rastafari is treated. You know, I've been coming back to Jamaica from 1977, and you know, so you talk about the Nyabingi, you know, going here, going to there, going to 12 tribe meeting, go to Orthodox. I'm baptized in Orthodox Church in Toronto. You know, so what I'm saying is that I interface with all the houses in different level. Even in Toronto, I do the same thing too.
Yeah.
You know, and I find that even for young in 2026, you know, youth can't go to school with locks because you have to prove that you're a Rasta. That's so backward, you know. And when you look at and I tell people this, I get more fight from Jamaicans than I get from non-Jamaicans. I get more fight from Rastas than I get from non-Rastas. I think it's an internalization, you know, this whole thing with slavery. You know, we get more fight. I'm talking about my experience.
I totally understand, and I can relate, actually.
Yes, so when I talk about 46 years of Masani production, 33 years of Rasta faith, you're talking uphill battle, you're talking fight, constant fight, even up until this day.
Oh, goodness.
Whether it's from the Rasta community, the reggae community, or the black community, or the Jamaican community. Those are the communities I fit in all in.
We simply do better.
So it's not easy. Mm-hmm. It's not an easy road after so many years. Mm-hmm. It's easier now, I would say, much easier now, because now I have young people running programs that I created so that I could focus on other areas that I want to create, that's the art. I'm going back to my first love, film and television. We're adapting Upper Eglinton, my book, my novel, to a TV series right now. That's another reason why I'm also in Jamaica too. You know what I'm saying? We're looking, we did a pilot, we're shooting them. Now that we have studio, we have equipment, we have space, we have everything. We say, hey, now we can do movies now, right?
Right.
So that's
where's the movie set? Because I need to come on, Peter. There's a movie set around here that Sister Masani is on, and we have not been there. This is not sounding good. No, but congratulations on that. Wow. Moving to the next level, and it is your book that is, and it's being filmed in Jamaica partly or totally?
All my plays are Jamaican Canadian. All my plays,
Yes.
like my Dread Culture, To Ship with Love is 2 novels, 5 plays.
So I know about those, right? And then when are you looking on completing the movie? What do you have a time?
Okay, so we did a pilot for the TV series. I was kind of wrestled between doing a TV series or just a one-off movie.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of generational wealth. I'm looking at, again, going back to why Masani production was created. It was created to employ people in the creative industry, right?
Yes.
So instead of me just doing a one-off movie, which we could have done it a long time ago, I decided to do a TV series, meaning that way people can continue being employed through the creative industry, one, and two, have the story ongoing.
Yeah.
Now, when you look at soap opera like Young and the Restless, people watch it for 40, 50 years.
That's true.
And if somebody can sit down and watch Young and the Restless, that
Yes.
calling no name there, for 40 years.
Yes, no call on him. I mean, I watch it. Don't mix me up. But I know the point you're making. And we sit down and watch some of these K-dramas and Turkish movies that run from here to eternity. So yeah, that thinking, what is it about? Give me a quick idea of.
Well, the big thing right is virtual drama. Let's be real. Everybody hooked on their cell phone.
Yes.
Cell phone. If you were to go into a room right now, if you see 100 people, I guarantee you, of the 100 people, let's say 95 people going to be on their cell phone. True or false?
As a matter of fact, 99.
Okay, so 99 people going to be on their cell phone.
Yes.
So how do you reach people on their cell phone? So they have something called virtual drama. You know who's killing it? The Koreans or the Chinese?
I'm seeing it. As a matter of fact, we were having that discussion with Peter just a few weeks ago, because I'm saying if movies now for Gen Alpha and possibly Gen Zs, really is what you're getting on your cell phone, and one episode is 5 seconds, 10 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, and the entire movie, the entire series can be 15 minutes when you're done.
Yeah. So that's where my head is at. That's where my head is at.
Brilliant. I was just talking about it. I said, this is what we need to do because this is how we reach them. I need to have another conversation with you, Sister Masani, because I think you have cracked the code as to how we move to the next stage. Because we can, I heard Elon Musk talking about calcification. He was at Davos talking about if we moving into the new world order, moving into the age of artificial intelligence or anti-intelligence, as we call it in this space, that if you do not move, you become calcified, is the word in use, calcification. And I thought about it for a very long time to say, because it is going the way it is going, we can't just allow it to dictate to us. In other words, how do we use this tool to ensure that we are also part of the liberation process, part of our own survival, as opposed to being part of our enslavement, and not just to use, but also to make, to create, as you've used this word so many times since you've been on this morning, creativity. Space. I want to thank you so much, Sister Masani. You've come on to talk about many things, and we have talked about a whole lot of things, and I probably don't talk about what we're supposed to talk about, so I'll give you a minute if I leave out anything.
Okay, so I have to stress tomorrow, of course. Tomorrow's a big day. As I said, we have been doing performances everywhere, but tomorrow's a big day. It's at Victoria Pier From 3 to 6 o'clock. From 3 to 6, we have workshops. So, the business of the music. Because a lot of time we talk about music, but we don't talk about the business of the music. So we have different organizations coming tomorrow to talk about the business of the music from 3 to 6. And from 6 to 9 is where we have the performances. So we have Canadian artists performing, Jamaican artists performing, with rolling out our programs for Jamaica. Because remember now, we're also based in Jamaica too, believe it or not.
Yes.
Masani Production, I registered a company here from 1980 because I'm so active and busy in Toronto, though it is why the Jamaican army is not as active as it should be. So now that I'm here, now that I'm getting a little bit older, I'm more focused on the Jamaican arm of the company now. So just everything we do in Toronto, we do it down here. Studio production, recording, everything. So tomorrow we're going to roll out our programs.
Yes.
So it's Island Cafe at Victoria Pier, that's Paula's place there. We're supporting what she's doing, she support what we're doing. So tomorrow with the workshops, as I said, from 3 to 6, and then from 6 to 9, the entertainment. So 6 o'clock is when we talk about the programs we're doing, what we're doing for Rastafest in Jamaica, what we're doing Rastafest in Toronto in August, and things like that. So tomorrow is a big day for us, and it's also a celebration of 46 years in the business, of 33 years doing a festival, of us just doing what we do. We have some young people with us tomorrow. You're going to meet our youth team as a youth talk. I couldn't come Jamaica and don't bring our youth team, so we have our youth talk showcase people down here with us, King Coco and Jem. Those are the two lead and the youth talk thing, and then we also have the artists them. So tomorrow is when we come together and show what we're doing, and then after we leave Jamaica now, then we go back to Toronto now. We started in Sister Fest is in April at Studio M, and then every month we have an event at the Little Jamaican Night Market. So we're busy up until when. Right?
All right.
The other thing I want to quickly squeeze in though is, which is something we have not decided we're going to do, but I think we're going to do it, is Nigeria. We have been invited many times to go to Africa. So for 2 weeks in October, second and third week in October, we were going to collaborate with an organization to reach out to us. They want us to do a Rastafest showcase in Nigeria.
Wow, that sounds really great, and we'd like to tag along with you when you are going into Nigeria. And we're going to check out Rastafest in Canada too. My girlfriend, who you know very well, Elaine Thompson, has always said to me, "You don't come into Canada, but I'll come for Rastafest. I'll come for Rastafest." All right, thank you so much, Sister Masani, as usual. Great work, and thank you so much for gracing us with your presence this morning. It was always going to happen, and here you are. Thank you, my sister. Have a wonderful rest of day, rest of week, rest of time, and we'll try and check out one of the events that you're having.
Okay, give thanks for the support, give thanks for the promotion, and give thanks for having us here on your platform.
Give thanks, Sister Masani Montiku. All right, we're going to take a quick break to go to our next guest. It is Peter says he's going to come around and do this break for me, but so I have to kind of, Peter, you forget that you're going to come do this break for me. All right, we are, though, on all of our social media platforms. We are joined online and on Zoom by our next very special guest, Dr. Francesca Savoldi. She is a human geographer whose work lies at the intersection of urban geography and political ecology. We're very, very happy to have her in studio, literally with us, because I'm looking at her now. Her research has developed along two principal trajectories, investigating how global infrastructural expansion reshapes urban geographies and social environmental relations, with a particular focus on port cities, examining the reconfiguration of coastal geographies, specifically the territorial regimes, power dynamics, and counterpower relations emerging from climate change adaptation and the accelerated growth of blue economies in coastal context. And we're going to tell you more about her as the morning goes on. She's a member of Port City Futures, and she has lectured and conducted research at several universities, including TU Delft, Erasmus University Rotterdam, and many others. Her body of work speaks for itself, and by the time we're through with this, you'll hear much more from her. She is also the founder of the online platform Contested ports. This is important also to the conversation that we're having this morning. Dr. Francesca Savaldi, thank you so much for joining us inside of the Africa Forum.
Good morning, Cabo. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
Right, it's good to have you. You know, when you see our intellectuals and you've been reading their papers and you've been having your own personal conversations with the papers, and then you finally get the author of the papers online, you said, okay, great, now we can really have a conversation. So thank you for the work that you've been doing, for the research that you have done over the many years, Dr. Francesca Stavaldi. I suppose you are paying some attention to what's happening here in Jamaica. But before we go there, I want to, because we have a wide listenership of young people, different levels, I want to speak to everyone this morning so we can understand. When we talk about ports, and specifically contested ports, what are we talking about?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, port cities, so city with ports, this has been my object of studies over the last 7 years. Port cities have changed enormously over the last 50 years. So the typical image of the past of a port, it would be with a lot of workers, in cosmopolitan places with people from all around the world. But the ports of nowadays, they are very different. They are privatized. They used to be. They're full of containers, they are inaccessible, and they're almost all automatized. So they have very different relationship with the city that they are hosting them. Mm-hmm. And this is because over the last 50 years, there has been a complete transformation of ports. They've transformed along the globalization, neoliberal globalization. So they became privatized, automatized, and they disconnect from the territories. What we see nowadays in ports is we cannot access them. There are less and less workers with more and more precarious jobs. There are bigger and bigger ships, and the economy of the port is disconnected from the economy of the city. So a port that is growing, it doesn't mean that is bringing benefits to the city. So the port and the city nowadays are in conflict. And everywhere, wherever you go around the world, you will find very often, likely you will find the conflict between the port and the communities that surround the port. Mm-hmm. Because they keep growing, and so they are becoming predatorial for the territories that surround them. Mm-hmm. So what I've been doing in the last few years has been studying the structural reason behind that, and also I've been working in close relationship, in close collaboration, let's say, with local communities. They are contesting this expansion to understand what is their point of view, what are the alternatives that they envision, and in what way they are organizing against these expansions.
What have you found so far in looking at what are the local and global reasons? And I know you did say global reasons behind how we see ports developing, what they are becoming.
Yeah, so the changes started really with the adoption of the container 50 years ago. So the container is this box that you'll find in any port around the world. It was invented by an American, actually it was used by military in the Korean War. It was a military invention. And then in the 1954, an American guy who had a business, he was transporting stuff. He introduced it into the transport of civic goods. So he saw that adopting the container instead of bringing the trucks on the ships, it was cheaper. It was cheaper, and he could transport more stuff in a less, let's say, smaller space. Mm-hmm. And in 10, 20 years, all the ports around the world started to be standardized to to host these containers. At the same time, in the 70s, the 80s, it was the time of neoliberal globalization, especially the 80s. And so there were measures that have accompanied the transformation of ports. There were measures that enabled a privatization before the port was belonging to the city, or was, let's say, the city had more agency on what the port was doing. Nowadays, the ports are managed by an oligopoly of shipping companies. So in the 70s, in the 80s and 90s, we had many shipping companies. Every country has its own. Somebody is smaller, somebody is bigger. But then at the end of the 80s, they started merging with each other. So the big shipping company were buying the smaller one. And what happened? That in 2017, we reached the climax where we have only 3 alliances of shipping companies that control the 80% of the global transport, the maritime transport. And this is a massive power that they have accumulated, because if you think that 90% that everything we consume is transported by sea. So this oligopoly of shipping company, they have accumulated a massive lobbying power, over ports. And so they can say to ports, or you give me what I want, I need for my business, or I go to another port and I make you decline. So it's a sort of threatening, it's blackmail relationship that shipping company has with ports nowadays. So basically from the 80 onwards, ports and cities has been slowly disconnecting. In economical terms, because the economy of the port is not the economy of the city anymore. In social terms, because they've become more automatized and impenetrable, but also in political terms, because what happened inside the port is not, the city doesn't have agency on it anymore. So in terms of governance, what it didn't detach, what it didn't divorce, let's say, is the environmental impact, because ports are still having very localized impacts. And because they are becoming bigger and bigger, their impacts are larger. They are detoxifying all the surrounding ecosystems. We can talk more about it.
I want to come back to all the different categories you mentioned, how the impact that these political, economic, environmental, social having on the city, on the nation, if you will, on countries where they are. But let me take a quick break, and we will come back to continue this conversation that we're having with Dr. Francesca Savaldi. We're speaking with Dr. Francesca Savaldi and contested ports as power. We became very much aware, Dr. Savaldi, of ports a few years ago, when there was this massive conversation on the island in Jamaica about China wanting to develop a hub of sorts on one of I think it's one of our little islands. It's not quite an island. Is it an island where China wanted to go? But in any case, there was this whole conversation about what that would mean for the environment. And so people, the discussion around ports started here in Jamaica. But, that died down, and then Jamaicans kind of, pulled back on that. Then we heard in recent years that Jamaica has now decided that it will be looking at becoming the largest transshipment port, if you will, in the region. That's one thing. And then just probably last year, we heard again, or 2 years ago, we heard again from the tourism ministry that we are now in discussions with and published, and I think signed off on deals with the UAE regarding Jamaica's port development. I'm naming all of these out to you within the context of what you just said, and what we're talking about, contested ports. Does any of that raise a red flag for you? And what are the pitfalls, if any, for Jamaica if we continue on this trajectory? Are there pros and cons? Because Jamaican people haven't really questioned this. Let me just tell you that. There's no questioning. As a matter of fact, Jamaicans are celebrating this. So are you seeing any red flags, especially with the UAE? We see what they're doing in Tanzania, for example, and we see the demonstrations there. I'm not quite sure if there are the ones in Belize. I'm not sure what's happening in Belize, but I know that there was a massive protest. There have been ongoing protests in Belize over the development of ports there also. But talk to us about what are the possible red flags for Jamaica if we continue with all of these plans that have been outlined by the government and specifically by the Ministry of Tourism?
Yes, it's a good question. So first of all, let me say that transshipment is mostly moving boxes from ship to ship. No? So it doesn't bring any prosperity to the territory. It's basically having like a parking outside the ports on the coast, on a big chunk of coast that is going to be full of concrete. So it's going to be privatized, it's going to be taken out, withdrawn from the community, they use it. So it's, in particular, the transshipment port doesn't really bring development or prosperity to the cities or to the territories in which they are built. They basically behave like free rider, the economists say, no? That they take up public finances, they take up resources, public, like commons, no resources, even nature, and they leave crumbs to the territory, which are almost nothing. They promise a lot of jobs, they promise a lot of development to justify the projects, because these projects are really, really expensive. The construction of this is not just about the commons, but the infrastructure per se is a very expensive project that is often paid with public finances. Mm-hmm. And to justify these projects, often we have this very dominant and baseless narrative that this project will bring prosperity for the territories. But that if you look well, you never find a proper cost analysis, cost-benefit analysis, because they don't exist. No, so
can you help us with examples? Because and I'm asking you for this specifically because this is a big deal for Jamaica. And as I said before, journalism, civil society, NGOs, if you will, there has been no pushback on this. I think, and it's not apathy either. I think people haven't really looked into it to say, but what do we get from this? And why this? So do you have examples? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, yes. I understand why this is happening, because nowadays what is logistics has become invisible to the eye. Even if the impacts are enormously, people don't know, the general public do not know well what logistics is. And this is not a casualty, it's not a coincidence, but it's done because ports have become inaccessible. No? So what logistics have become a sphere of almost unknown to the public. People don't know how goods circulates and who the power relationship that are behind them, and this narrative of logistical expansion and development of prosperity is so dominant that not everybody has challenged it. But if you start deconstructing and digging, you will see that this is really doesn't really respond to a reality. Yes. And it's really easy to see. It's not just a speculation. Like if you go to see the past, the port that has been expanded or built over the last 15-20 years, you could compare easily the narrative that can be used or promote to promote the project and what is actually nowadays, after 10-20 years. You don't see the development and prosperity, let's say distributed prosperity that they were using to promote to promote the project. No, so it's quite easy to deconstruct, to challenge, but as usual, dominant narratives are dominant because of some reason. No, so it really requires an active effort to go and say, is it really like that? Or so it entails a little bit of work
to investigate. And I think also academia owes Jamaica that, this is something that the conversation should be happening within, say, the University of the West Indies, the University of Technology, Northern Caribbean University, so many universities on the island. And we're not seeing, unless they're writing papers for journals and they're not trickling down to us, but I'm not seeing, I went searching too and I found you. So this is where we are. But it would be good to see how academia engages with this, but at the same time, on our level, those of us in the media, journalism, investigative journalism, and so on, really does have a responsibility. Does the UAE send a red flag? Because we see two things: what they're doing in Tanzania and in the very same area. And across the continent of Africa, if you will, which seems to be having some negative impact on the nations that they're in. We also see that the person who who fronted all of these trade deals, for example, with Jamaica, turned up in the Epstein files, and Ben Suleiman, and had to step down. Well, he was forced to step down just a few weeks ago. Everything is continuing as if that didn't happen. What are your own thinking? Have you been looking at the UAE, what it has been doing across Africa, and what does it mean for Jamaica, this kind of partnership on ports with the UAE?
So, in my opinion, it's not the UAE itself, but it's really the oligopoly of these port operators. So we have the oligopoly of shipping, which are four alliances of companies that deal with shipping. And then we have an oligopoly, like a few other, I think 7 companies that do work as operator of ports. So we have like DP Port, which is the one interested in your case. We have
You're breaking up a bit. You're breaking up a bit, Francesco.
So there are 7 companies that. Can you hear me?
Well, I'm hearing you now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you now. We're also seeing you. So this is better. For a minute, we lost you there.
If the signal is not good, let me know, and I just switch off my camera.
It's much better now. Go ahead.
Okay, good.
Yes.
So I was saying that there are 7 companies that function as port operators. We have the shipping companies, and then we have the port operators. So the port operators are these 7 companies. One is DP Port, one is from the Hutchins, which I think. Can you hear me?
Right. So no, we
I think we have some connection issues.
Yeah. I just heard you there, so that's good again. But let's see what happened. Where we lost you when you said DP Port. So you're talking about the 7, and you said one is DP Port, which is of interest to us. If you don't mind, tell us who are the others. Okay. No.
The 7 sorry, there is a bit of we have some issues, but DP Port is basically the company behind Dubai's logistical hub, and they've been spreading across ports, making deals with port authorities to build and to operate port terminals. So what we see here is a clear spillover of benefits. No? So all the benefit that comes not only with transshipment, but actually with contemporary ports in general, is that who wins? The people, the companies that get money are shipping companies, the port operators, which are located somewhere else, always somewhere else, because there are just few of them. So there are just few corporations that are not based in Jamaica or in Italy, or there are corporations that have they often don't even pay taxes because the company are registered in in a tax haven. So this is what we call the spillover of benefits, because while the territories, they bear all the impacts, the benefits go somewhere else. The fact that this company, the DP Port, it could have geopolitical implication, but I'm not seeing so many difference compared to PSA from Singapore or Hutchinson. So my red flags is more for a structural, it's around more of the structural impacts, cost and benefits, not who gets the benefit and who bear the cost. But it's not very much about its political, geopolitical, let's say, character. I could be wrong. There could be something more there, but for the moment, I haven't been looking much into that.
Yeah, I think we also need to spend some time looking into it. I only started looking at the UAE and its relationship with the continental Africa and the Caribbean because I went into the Epstein files and found that they were so much involved in torture videos, if you will, because that's basically the person who actually said, "I love the torture video that you sent me," is the one who who was pictured, in the announcement of the deals with our own politicians here. And I'm not saying that they're involved in anything, because I figure that they probably didn't even know. But I think it's worth investigating because they are so involved in the Caribbean and the continent of Africa. So then, you talked also about the environmental ramifications or the impact of ports, and I want you to spend some time talking about that, especially within our context, the Caribbean region, Jamaica. And if you will, I'm going to take a break and come back, and if you will, talk a little bit also about how cruise shipping fit into all of this. I've been raising a question here in this space for a very long time, for many, many moons, and it hasn't been answered, and that is, where does all the waste go from the cruise ships? And it seems to me as if they go right back in the Caribbean waters and not too far from land. And so I want you to put all of that into context when you come back. We're talking about contested ports, port privatization in Jamaica. Jamaica has transshipment ambitions, and it seems that within that whole context, Jamaica is surrendering its maritime sovereignty. A quick break, and we will be right back with. So let us talk, Dr. Francesca, about the environmental impact generally, but also to look at cruise shipping within that context. And where does the waste go?
It's a good question because nobody knows. So first of all, when we talk about environmental impact, we can look at them from the air, atmospheric, but also you can look. It's on biodiversity. It's on noise and light directly on community. The issue of waste. There are so many categories through which we can see these environmental impacts because they are actually massive. And we don't even monitor them all. Actually, they're almost not monitored because the area of ports, they really work as a gray area of legislation sometimes. So there are no monitoring going there. So from the point of view of the atmospheric pollution, it's obviously a massive problem because both commercial container ship and cruise ship, they're massive. They emit a giant amount of sulfur oxides, SOx, which are toxic for humans. They produce pulmonary edema, like fluid in the lungs, and then in long term they produce a lot of damages like chronic bronchitis, decline of lungs functionality, and also cardiovascular disease. And just the scale of it is incredible. There were a few studies published a couple of years ago that has shown how in 2022, about 200 cruise ships in Europe were polluting 1 billion of cars.
Wow.
So 4 times all the car of the European Union combined, and this is really massive. It's massive, and the issue is that all this pollution doesn't go all across Europe, but it remains concentrated around port territories, despite the wind maybe bring the air around. But there is a city in the UK, Southampton, that calculated that 45 cruise ships produced almost 10 times more than all the city 93,000 cars.
Wow.
So it's a huge issue, and this is just SOx, the sulfur oxide. Then obviously we have PM 2.5, the nitrogen oxides. So there are a lot of toxic particles that comes out there, and it's understandable because these are floating cities. Sometimes they have 5 to 10,000 people traveling on the cruise ship, and in terms of containers, we have ships that nowadays transport 25,000 containers. Imagine what fits in 25,000 containers. So to move monsters like this, you need a lot of fuel. And this is not the fuel that we use in cars, it's actually heavier, so it's even more polluting. So then there were some studies that have been done in Italy around the port of Civitavecchia, which is the port of Rome. It's mainly a cruise port, and the study, it was an epidemiological studies, and it has shown that within 500 meters of the port area, there were 31% more mortality due to lung cancer.
Wow.
And 51 more increase to neurological disease. So these are numbers that comes out from scientific epidemiological studies. So it's a big issue. The atmospheric pollution is not the only one.
For us, I think this is frightening. Over the last few years, we have seen more and more cruise ships coming into Jamaica. We've always been concerned in this space about the pollution, and especially about the effluent. Where does it go? And the answer to that, because for me, it seems to me as if that happens within the waters just of Jamaica's coast. And how does that impact food security, for example, when you think about how the extent to which Jamaica depends on the sea? But there's also another thing where, on the one hand, we're losing our coastline because of the privatization of beaches for hotels, right? And then you have cruise shipping on the other hand, and you have conversations about ports and so on. A small island like Jamaica, from your professional perspective, can it withstand this kind of what appears to be this wanton development? We have nothing against development, but just the kind that we are experiencing, the extent to which the people have been denied access to the beaches, the extent to which cruise shipping has now literally taken over Jamaica's coastline, and Jamaica's transshipment ambition.
So I wouldn't call it development, and I know that it is used in dominant narrative, and the people that are justifying developers use the word development, but it's just a semantic confusion because the developers are not doing development necessarily, right? Yes. So they're doing a project that is paid with public finances, and that is benefiting private corporation mainly, and what the people get is just like it's just like crumbs. It's trickle down, some sort of trickle down economics. But actually, there are studies that have shown that the cost, if we start calculating the cost, they are much bigger than the benefits of what local communities and cities get. So from an island in the Caribbean with such a delicate and important biodiversity, the cost is enormous. And I'm talking about monetary and non-monetary costs, because not everything can be monetized. What is the price of a beach? It's impossible to give a price to the beach because the beaches have social value. is used as a public space. It's important for public health. It's important for many reasons. It has also an emotional attachment. So we cannot give a price to everything, but there are monetary and non-monetary costs. So from the point of view of biodiversity, the impact is incredible, because these ships, they are like floating. They are not like just cities. They are hyper-consumeristic cities floating. So imagine 5,000 people that are taking showers every day. They are going to the bathroom. They generate a huge amount of gray and black water, and that some of them are treated on board, but the sewage treatment plant eventually are discharge the water to the 12 nautical miles offshore. This is the rule. I don't know if it's always respected, but so these water that are discharged, even if they are treated, they always contain heavy metals, and the water that is discharged is not clean. So this has a huge impact. It has microplastic, it has chemicals, pathogens, chlorines. So they are not good for the for the biodiversity, and this means that then they enter the food chain. So the fish, the corals, and eventually ended up in our bodies, or the bodies of the people on your coast. So the impacts are difficult to imagine, let's say, because they are long term and they accumulate. So we are presenting this kind of projects come with this idea of we are bringing jobs and we're bringing wealth, but actually the costs are enormous. They are not even bringing wealth because the wealth they bring, it's concentrated in just few, let's say, the important benefits are concentrated in the hand of few corporations.
And it doesn't stay with the nation, the country in which these ports are, which is something that you have been saying since the beginning of this interview. So then it makes you wonder what the thinking is when you talk about investment, that this is a way that so many countries, especially countries that are more focused on tourism, that this is the direction that they are going in. Are you talking to us from Italy right now?
I'm based in London,
okay,
but I often go to Italy, yes, because I'm Italian.
And I've asked that because, when a lot of us who've been through high school in the 80s, 90s, think about ports, we go Merchant of Venice. You who spat upon my Jewish garbardine and asked me, now beg me 10 ducats. This is where we go, the Merchant of Venice. We think about that whole thing. Do we ever have a situation where countries without ports have any kind of power? How can ports be leveraged for power and sovereignty, or can't it?
That's a good question, because the major shipping and cruise company, which is Mediterranean Shipping Company, is actually based in Switzerland, which is a landlocked country.
Good.
Yeah, just follow the money, you'll find where they are.
Yes.
So this is an issue, yes. But talking about Venice, it's interesting. It's an interesting case to see, to dismantle this dominant narrative of cruise ship bringing wealth, because since, let's say, over the last 15 years, Venice has become a cruise ship destination. And what have we seen? People getting richer? No, we have seen 2,500 people every year leaving the city because it has become unbearable. They don't find, the shops have changed, they became all shop for tourists. It's difficult to buy bread. It's difficult to cross the city because of the mass of people that are unleashed in this medieval little city. So the congestion is incredible. And then this brings all the increase of housing prices, and so people that the original residents, they have been living, and nowadays only 40,000 people live in Venice. And when there are cruise ship around, you can't even use internet properly because there are like electromagnetic pollution, if we want to call it that way. So the people there have been organizing for 15 years, and they have managed to keep the ship outside the lagoon, but they're always there that they want to come back. So making deals with the municipality, with the states, with the port authority, because they want the city, right? They want it. So if we look at what is the wealth, where is the wealth that they have brought? It's not the wealth for citizens that have left the city. So
and I think
that's why it's in.
So that Venice becomes a really good case study for so many other countries. If we take the time to really study what has happened, investigate what has happened or what is happening to Venice, it's still romantic to so many. When people gain a little wealthier in Jamaica, they want to go get married in Venice. You know? But just what you outlined to us now tells us that we can use this as a case study, because Jamaica is really the plan that Jamaica has is to make, while majority of the citizens are so many of the citizens are living below the poverty line or just barely above the poverty line, is to make this into a little Venice, a little Martha's Vineyard, you know, and to have private jets coming in and private, you know, in Portland, for example, which is such a beautiful place in terms of the coastline, the forestry, for so many years. You know, you're making this a place for private boats to come in. And these are not really boats. These are private boats that look like ships. You know, this is where they've been docking for years. So, and we see that getting out of hand, if you will. So to me, it seems as if this focus that we have on ports might, in the long run, impact, even if not immediately, if we're not noticing this immediately, that the impact for Jamaica, just listening to what you're saying, whether it is economically, politically, well, maybe politically for them it's okay, but whether it's economically or from an environmental perspective, that this is, and social perspective, this is not looking good. I'm going to take a break, Francesca. When we come back, we have just about 5 minutes or so, but I really wanted to talk to you a little bit about, so what are the options for countries then when it comes to ports? Can this be done in any way to make it better for countries? Let me take a quick break. I'm going to just go straight to you to talk about, so what are the options? Because here, and Jamaica is critical, right? Because this is the trajectory that we're on, and there's excitement on the island for this. But what are the options? Because obviously you've said to us, this is not the best thing for countries.
No, it's not, because bringing let's say, using public finance for an infrastructure, it makes people believe that there will be, that the country will grow. But actually, this is a false narrative, because this money can be used for other things. They can use for industrial plan, or they can use for simply other objective. Every country has to decide on its own. So I cannot have, I'm not Jamaican, so I cannot have an opinion on what's best for you. But I can tell you what other people have doing, and what other people, how they have stopped these port projects. There is a case I really like from Australia, in Gold Coast, which is on the eastern side of Australia, not so far from Sydney. So a few years ago, well, let's say maybe 10 years ago, there was a port project, a project of port expansion. This was a cruise port. And they were promising, as usual, a lot of jobs.
Okay. Just breaking up a little.
But actually, can you hear me?
Yes, hearing you loud and clear now.
Okay. Good. So I was talking about the case of Gold Coast in Australia, which I find very interesting, because the residents, different groups of residents, inclusive indigenous communities, they got together to think and challenge this dominant narrative, and they start doing research, grassroots research, and they've actually verified that the benefit of the cruise sector were coming at to such a big expenses for the other sectors that were using the costs. So their analysis has shown that the project of a cruise port, which ended up not being built thanks to this protest, was a threat to other coastal tourism and recreational business that were smaller, were more sustainable, and they were more, let's say that the income were more distributed across the communities. I'm talking about surfing, whale watching, but also small cafes on the beach or other small business that are using the coastline that has not been privatized yet for smaller and more sustainable business. So we need to see that there are alternatives, and it is the community and the territory that has to decide according to its own history, according to its own tradition, economic traditions, what is best for them. But we are, with this very dominant narrative, we are kind of pushed in a corner and made believe that there is no alternative. But with all this money that are invested from public finance, there are a lot of alternatives that can be done. They can be, let's say, conceived.
What's that? In terms of the alternative, we missed the word you said. There can be?
They can be conceived by the local communities or the cities or or people that are concerned with their own territories.
I totally agree with you, because there's also the issue of land, and we see how that is being rolled out. The acquisition of land ownership. When you think about what China was asking for example, was demanding, if you will, here in Jamaica, it was that's like an entire island, if you will. So the loss of land to ports is also another critical factor. And I think that even as we discuss becoming the largest transshipment port in the region, where in heaven's name or any other name are we going to get that land from? This small island.
Yes, so you're talking about the sand mining situation, the soil that is being used. Yeah, because you're right to point it out, because it seems that the materials materialize like from and actually this sand is being mined somewhere else. It could be from around the coast of Jamaica or other islands. If I'm telling you that Singapore has been growing, the port of Singapore, while it was growing, Indonesia, some island from Indonesia were disappearing.
Goodness.
Because there are thieves of sand. Sand has become a very valuable resource, and is scarce, because not all the sand is good for building for building, making concrete or making soil. So I can talk about the case of Colombo in Sri Lanka, where COSCO, which is the Chinese company, was expanding the port, and then they built a massive area reclaimed from the sea in front of, just offshore of the coast, where this is gonna be an exclusive economic zone based on very privileged law rooted in colonial era. So when they did sand mining offshore of the coast of Sri Lanka, all the fishing community of the western coast of the country could not fish anymore for a very long time, because they were mining, they were modifying the orography of the seabed, and this obviously have destroyed the local ecosystem. So being heavily dependent on fishing, this community were suffering a lot. A lot of them had to move to the city. They became new urban poor, because what do you do in the city if you move, so, and also this modification of the seabed was bringing unexpected new wave that were washing up the houses that were built on the beach. So it's environmental damage, it's socioeconomic damage. There are a lot of implications.
And we have a situation in Jamaica now, and the president of JABEM, Dr. Devon Taylor, is reminding me by text as he's watching that. So we have the problem with the beaches, of course, as I mentioned, but he said not only the beaches but the rocky shores, and it is true that this is something now that's happening where they're destroying the rocky shores to make private beaches to do whatever they're doing. Or I don't know if it's ports or just beaches, but this is also another thing that's happening at the same time. It sounds and it looks like madness, but it's happening. To witness it is a whole other thing. We're going to invite you into Jamaica.
I wish.
Yeah, you can come.
I would love to visit you.
Yeah. We have to. I mean, so much work, just from your body of work, I think that there's so much that you can offer in the spaces, whether it is to academia, because that's basically where you're coming out of. We didn't say this before, but from 2021 to 2023, and pronounce this for me, you held a Marie Curie,
yes.
Marie Curie postdoctoral fellowship at TU Delft, and
yes.
where you critically analyze evolving relationship between ports and cities, addressing the contemporary power imbalances as well as the contested spaces and relationalities they generate. And you also, as I said before, are the founder of the platform Contested Ports. So, your work is available online for persons who want to go and read the research that you have done. So much work. Where do they go? Is it to your website, or are there other areas where they can find your work?
So on the platform Contested Ports, which is made in co-production with local communities that are fighting port expansion, everything is available online. So you just go to the platform contestedports.com and you'll see, first of all, a map that is a growing map of conflict, and then you have all these cases where the communities have written about their own conflicts and their own form of resistance. But the website works also as a public repository, so you will have studies on pollution, studies on power relationship. You have documentaries that community themselves have made about the struggle with the port. You have a zine, which is a little publication, non-academic publication. So you have a lot of things there, a lot of material for people that want to get to know more this issue, and also who gets the idea of inviting communities to contribute is because at the beginning of my research, I realized that a lot of communities were feeling a sense of exceptionalism. So they didn't have the notion that this was a symptom of a global problem. They thought it was their own. But along the years, then people now are starting to talk to each other translocally. So there are some translocal. There is a construction. There are several communities that are getting together and fighting these projects because it makes sense to get together, because the companies are the same, because the cases, a lot of resources like legal resources or scientific resources can be shared. So there is actually translocal unifying or movement in Mexico, but also in Europe. In many places, people are talking to each other now from different places, from different communities.
I think we have to get on board. Dr. Savoldi, Francesca, thank you so much. I'll invite you back because this has to be a deeper and also wider conversation. So I hope that you'll be able to come back to the space and very soon come into Jamaica if you will. But thank you so much for the work and for being on the program this morning.
It was all my pleasure to be here. I'll be here for you anytime you ask.
Oh,
happy to share everything I know, and hopefully to visit you one day.
All right. We look forward to that. Thank you so much, Dr. Francesca Savoldi. Please go to Contested Ports and check out her work. You'll be hearing from her in other programs. By the way, Goat Island is the name of the island we were trying to remember that China, that was going to be given to China. Jamaicans really demonstrated against that in a serious way. That's an entire island for a logistics hub, if you will. All right, getting your messages on all of these social media sites. So let me just quickly say good morning to Andrew Lumsden, Naki Wailer. Naki, we talk to you in a little while. Moylene Samuels, who is listening from Canada. Yes, Moylene, I'll try and come in. Dr. Devon Taylor, Noel Myrie, thank you so much, my brother. Hey, Bert Samuels, how you doing? Ras Jomo, Leticia Bahad Singh, my sister. Ras T and sister Audrey, Dr. Hilburn Watson, Dr. Miguel Brooks, my sister Valerie, who is in the UK. Hey, good morning to you also, Dawn Eaton, who is in the UK. Elaine, who is in Tunisia. Good morning, my sister Elaine. Okay, it's a whole lot. I can't go through all of it, but so that's just on one platform. And let me see if what's happening on the others. How much more can I go through here? All right, let me see those who at least commented. All right, Aldis Hunker, my sister, who will be in studio with me next week Sunday, because she is literally heading back to Benevolence right after that. So Aldrich will be in studio with me. My brother K. Azikwe, how you doing? Hope you're feeling much better. I see. You know, if I could be like K. Azikwe in terms of commitment to ensuring that I exercise even after an accident, then we're good. K. had an accident, and it looked to me like, you know, he was injured, and even though he says, I'm okay, my sister, I hear you, K-Dot, and I see you when you're exercising, and I really do hope that you feel much better, much sooner, and one of these days, you're going to have to come in studio with me, so get better soon. Jawari Garvey, thank you so much, my brother. My sister Donna Matty, sister friend, how you doing? You know, Ras Joma is asking, who are the owner for the oil? Yes, my brother, we need Ras Horton in the studio with us. Okay, so let me see what K-Dot says. He says, I am getting better each day. Okay, thank you. Andrew, do you want me to say that? All right, daily blessings. Okay. All right, listen now. You can't keep... okay, this is... Give thanks to you too, K-Dot. Well, what is happening as I'm reading? Lots of messages are coming in. All right, so... but I'm moving away from that, and I'm going back to... let me just quickly go through this. My sister Rosie Trung, Winston Obatala Pedley, Kevin Naireri, how you doing, my brother? DJ Stark Kenroy, Dwayne Andre Lee, Chris Yanis, Emeka Ogbu, my sister friend in the British Virgin Islands, formerly from Montserrat, my fellow colleague and journalist, Angela Burns. This is really a surprise to see you here, my sister. All right, Dave Morgan, Koisi Edmond, Clement Dickinson, Abdullah Kamara, Pablo Moses, Desmond Lovelace, Gladman Wandisile Konki, Anthony Kiru. All right, I'll come back to the others in a little while, but I just wanted to give a shout out to all those who are sending messages, who have written in, texted, and so on. Thank you so much. And to everyone who's listening on the social media platforms, watching in 107s, 107.1 to 107.9. Thank you so much. On the internet at irafm.net, on your mobile apps, on the social media platforms. Welcome, Akwaba, Asante Sana, Dua. Thank you so much. We're going to go to our next very special guest. She's very patient, and we tend to do this every time she comes on because I know how patient she is. Dr. Pernell Bell, we're not taking any kind of advantage of the situation. Thank you so much, my sister, for joining us again. Dr. Pernell Bell is a consultant clinical psychologist. She's an author, mental health profession with extensive experience in psychological assessment, psychotherapy, and organizational consultation. She's a founder of the Caribbean Diagnostic and Psychotherapy Institute, where she provides clinical services, supervision, and professional training to developing practitioners. She's worked extensively with different ministries here in Jamaica, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, you name it. You know her by now because she's been on 3 weeks in a row. Dr. Bell, thank you so much for coming back.
Dr. Boo, thanks very much. Thank you for having me.
Looking gorgeous as usual.
Thank you.
Dr. Bell, we want to talk about parenting this morning. And that came out of just having a off-the-cuff conversation with you last week regarding our children and within the school setting. And you talked about you talked about the expectations, right? And what, as opposed to the reality. Parenting, when we talk about parenting, because obviously there is good and bad parenting, right? What do we expect good parenting to be? What should that look like?
Good parenting, well, when we talk about good parenting, we're talking about someone who is going to be there emotionally, psychologically, and socially, and financially, and all the alleys you can think of in terms of providing care for that individual who is under their care. So emotional support would mean that we as parents, we should show up emotionally stable so that children are able to develop that same kind of emotional regulation. We are there to support them physically too, where we're going to take care of them in a developmentally healthy way, meaning that we start out doing the things that parents should do at a certain developmental age and then transition into doing and supporting as they develop. And when we think of psychological, we want to ensure that the children are feeling safe. And psychological safety means that they are going to come and see parents who are going to be there for them to guide, instruct, discipline, all of that, and discipline in such a way that the children feel like they are growing emotionally and psychologically normally. And when we think of financial too, parents should be there to be able to provide both a meal, provide other amenities that the child may need, so that that stability is there and they can grow in that psychologically and socially and emotionally well way.
What does it mean to be there emotionally? Because you can be there physically is what I'm hearing you saying. You could be present, but not physical present, but not emotionally present.
So emotionally present mean that as a caregiver, as the parent, that we regulate our own emotions. So we're not going to be especially disciplining children in an emotionally dysregulated way. And that means even disciplining in anger. We must always allow children to see us in a state that is going to let them not feel afraid. So even if they're doing things that are wrong, when parents show up emotionally regulated and stable, the child will be emotionally regulated and stable and be able to reason, make good decisions, and then come out, out of that situation feeling safe.
Be present in the present moment. Right. I'm going to take a quick break, but we want to look at parenting, especially in an age of the digital convergence of all of these technologies that we have, and especially in an age of social media and now moving into artificial intelligence. So let me take a quick break and come back with much more.
Get more miles with the Ruby's Ultratech. Fuel the difference for peak performance and maximum savings. Drive more and save more. Ruby's Ultratech is.
Now 8:47, speaking with Dr. Pernell Bell, consultant, clinical psychologist, author, and mental health professional. So we're in an age where we have a convergence of the digital technologies, and we're moving beyond that now, where we had a conversation earlier, I think it was our sister Masani Montiku, and she talked about if 100 persons in a room, how many would be on their phones. This is a critical conversation to have. What are the pitfalls for parents who do not have the tools, if you will, to deal with this digital convergence and the fact that their children are accessing the technologies in the way that young people are accessing now?
I want to start out that conversation by saying that the digital age is good. Misuse of it is what we are talking about, because it really does help and enhance work. It enhances our entertainment and so on. But unregulated, it can create psychological, social, physical damage to our children if not regulated. And I'll tell you, after COVID-19, I'll tell you, I saw in my practice an increase in psychological issues related to the digital use, technology in use. And many of the children who were coming into me during and immediately after COVID, who were locked in and who were on gadgets 24/7, were experiencing anxiety and depression and low self-esteem. It was eye-opening in that sense to say, how could this happen? But overuse of those devices actually create chemical imbalances that can result in the anxiety and depression because of overuse of these gadgets. It could also lead to that dysregulated behavior, because when they are the gadgets are taken away, they become emotionally dysregulated. And that was another thing that I saw during and immediately after COVID, when devices were taken away from the kids. They became ballistic.
There had to be something. There had to be a deliberateness about how our children were made to depend on these devices during COVID. Because before COVID, many schools, for example, in Jamaica, did not allow smartphones or mobile phones in school. So you leave that in your yard until you reach back home, and the parents regulate at home. But once we had this situation with COVID, where children now had to learn online, we also put them on these gadgets that you're talking about that can cause chemical imbalances. And you see the behavior even when it was taken away from them. So there's some addiction going on there. So there had to be some deliberateness. But how do parents... All right, I'm not quite sure if you're finished saying what the impact on the child is. I interrupted you there. But as you go on, talk also about then how do parents deal with this? Because we're not, as parents, equipped to deal with this.
Well, the more we become aware, is the more things are out there that help us to actually see what needs to be done. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But I want to go back a little to also some other effects. So, for example, it can affect the child's attention span, because switching between different programs and things that they're watching on these devices could affect them cognitively. And that is one, they become sedentary in a way, and they're being fed. So that thinking process and problem solving process sometimes become derailed as a result of the fact that you are just paying attention and not gainfully engage in problem solving and learning, independent learning too, because you depend on that gadget to teach. And so you are not critically thinking. We have to look into that too.
Yes.
And then there's the whole issue of what these media are actually saying to children. There's cyberbullying. There's the kind of lifestyle that they're seeing, and it could translate into the kind of behaviors. How do I want to get rich quick because of what I'm seeing others that are doing? So the influence is also shaping the children's identity, and many times not in the kinds of ways. As a matter of fact, what I discovered too is that these devices and programs that are on it becomes the parent. So most time children will come into me and they said, I learn on social media. Google said, Dr. Google is not that. Back in my days, and I'm sure your days, Kabu, we used to say our parents said. So they become the parent in a way. And this is why sometimes that divide between children and parent occur, because of the use of these devices.
And this is critical because
very, very careful.
I have been
also redefines friendship. I have had children who come into me again.
Go ahead.
And these are my real life experiences where they're online. They don't know who that friend is, if it's some real life male, female. And when you question them into critical thinking, they say, yes, it's my friend. And so that got me thinking we may have to redefine what friendship is based on this technological age. But then we have predators out there.
All right.
So again, we want to be very, very careful what our children are being exposed to, and become vanguards in terms of helping them to use these devices in a way that is beneficial for them, and not use it in a way that will bring harm.
Responsibly.
Yes.
So what does that vanguard look like in terms of the parenting?
So parents will have to teach digital self-regulation. They have to regulate themselves too, because I find that sometimes parents are becoming caught up in it. And they may be doing their thing, and the babies are also doing their thing. So from very early, they're allowing the devices to become babysitters. And that can be very dangerous, because children as early as 1 year old are being exposed.
And I think we do have a signal problem, but I'm sure that she'll come back in a minute. I'm quite sure the signal dropped, but I know she's frozen on screen and we're not hearing you.
Regulation and what that would look like.
All right, so we didn't so hang on, Dr. Bell. We didn't hear you for a good while. Where the last thing we heard you say was that parents have to regulate themselves, because you say one of the things that you've noticed is that parents themselves are caught up in the digital technology, and the phones are babysitting even babies as young as
Yes.
1 year old. That's
Right, and that's dangerous, because what we're doing is creating an addiction. When those devices are taken away from the children, they usually throw tantrums and go ballistic, if you know what I'm saying. And so parents need to regulate the time. So children should be given, as they grow older, maybe increased time, but that the time should be regulated. And I have heard children said they're on the device, especially now that they're back in school, on the weekends for up to 8-9 hours. Just being
Just
exposed
consuming
to all kinds of content.
Yeah. So when it comes to timing on these devices versus parenting, what are we looking at? Your own suggestions as we go to different age group. And should children at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 be on the phone like that, on these devices?
Up to 2-year-olds should not be on the devices. They shouldn't.
But 3-year-old should be on it?
Well, I mean, regulated in terms of even educational stuff, and then taken away for social interaction and play. Because that's another thing that is being taken away because we are on these devices. So play has become, even in schools, I've heard parents come and say, teachers are actually now saying they don't send them out for recess nor lunchtime because they don't want them come back into the room sweaty. No, children need to play. So that's another physical piece that is taken away as a result of being on the devices. So children need to explore their environments from early, to have them seated at a device for prolonged hours is really very destructive.
So let's just look at the different age groups then, if you were to group them, and the amount of time that you would suggest, if any.
So we're going up, and for children, I would say maybe 5 up to 10. They could be given an hour of screen time per day. And as they get older, the time could increase, but again, should be for entertainment, divided up for entertainment, for academic pursuits, and so on. But again, that should not be prolonged, as we are saying, 8, 9, 10 hours. That's really not regulated.
So from 10 to what, 16 then? Or 10 to 15, 13? 10 to 13?
2 hours. 2 hours of screen time.
Up to 13?
Up to 13, no. Up to I would say up to 18, because we're going into teenage years now. 2 hours, and it should be not 2 hours continuous, but 2 interrupted hours for different things relating to both academic and entertainment. But it should not be prolonged. And for children, it should be an half an hour to an hour per day. And on the weekend, maybe a little bit more. Again, regulated in a sense that they have their chores, they have playtime, social time with the family, dinner time, and so on, all in the mix of that. And then given the gadgets or devices for some kind of entertainment and academic pursuits.
Hold the line for me. Okay, so you're saying for teenagers, you're looking now at 2 hours per day, but Dr. Bell, you know that is nothing like what is happening, right?
No, I know. I'm aware of that.
So what do you do? All right, so 2 hours maximum?
Yeah, because that would include some level of entertainment, plus many of the work that they're doing now require educational schoolwork, require the use of the gadget. So it would be divided in that.
All right, so you divide, so the 2 hours, does that include the schoolwork, or is this the 2 hours?
Schoolwork.
Including of the schoolwork?
Yes.
That cannot work. No, I'm saying that the reality of what we have on the ground is that 2 hours for the entertainment in terms of what you're doing, and then you have one next whole 5 hours, it appears to me, on the phone for schoolwork. When we say teenagers, what years are we talking about?
We're looking from about 13 to 18.
Wow. And 2 hours
in terms of school.
And the recommended time on the device is 2 hours, inclusive of whether you're A-level, CXC, CAPE, it don't matter, 2 hours. What do you say to parents who are already experiencing a full day of their children who are doing exams, who say, we're doing exams, the books are sent to us on the phone, on our devices, because this is a reality now. Our teachers are saying, don't buy the book. The book is online. You can get the book online. And so you are reading also the book online. I mean, how do you balance that kind of parenting, that kind of situation? Because here the education and the parenting clash in the home.
Well, you know what? 3/4 of the time, children are not using it for educational purposes.
So check.
That's the piece that we have to remember. They're scrolling, looking at social media, they're doing all kinds of other things than using it for educational purposes. That's my experience with that. So even though that is what is happening now, that 3/4 of the time, those gadgets are not being used for educational purposes.
So what do you say to the parents?
Online is not good either, because again, screen time can create all kinds of issues in terms of sleep issues. If you are going to be on your gadget, that blue light at night is going to interfere with sleep. And we're seeing that happening with many of the children who are on gadgets right throughout the night, and then we cannot wake up to even go to school. So we have to be very careful.
Should they have the gadgets with them while they are, once they've gone off to bed? I mean, at what time do you get the gadget away from them, and at what age is it appropriate to leave them with the gadget in their bedrooms?
Well, I don't think gadgets should be in the bedrooms. What should happen is that parents should regulate the use of it, and after the child has used it, it shouldn't enter the bedroom with the child, because usually they don't have the discipline enough to know that they're going to go to bed, because this has become addictive. And so what is going to happen is that they're going to have it, which is what, again, I know in my experience is happening, where they go in the room and they will be on the gadget and losing sleep. And by the time maybe even 4 a.m. comes, that's time for them to get up, and they're tired and go to school so gadgets should not enter the bedroom. They should be given their own sleeping areas in the house. Parents, everybody, as a form of regulation and discipline, they should put away those phones and never allow them in the bedrooms with the children.
That's a tough one. Not with the children, but the parents, I'm thinking.
And the parents too.
Right. Because this is a question that I keep asking myself. What did we do before the mobile phones, that we got everywhere with? What did we do? How did we survive?
We survived, and we were more regulated and more healthy people who had a bedtime. All of us knew that we had a cutoff time, and that's why even I discovered too during COVID that children who were not affected by these psychological and emotional issues were children who had a schedule. The parents would wake them up, get them ready as if they were going to school, put them into the school setting, gave them recess. They had to go outside and play. The parents played with them. And then the same thing would happen at dinner, meal time, and a bedtime. And so once we as parents help our children to have that kind of schedule if you may, that it usually create a balance, both chemical balance and balance in terms of activities, and it helped that child to be regulated and psychologically, socially, and physically healthy. And the same thing should go whether we have devices or not, whether we are under curfew or not. Children should always have a schedule. They know their bedtime, they know their wake up time, they know their dinner time, lunch time, family time, and so on. And children who are grown up in situations like that usually end up being really very healthy children with boundaries.
And with just a minute to go, Dr. Bell, the importance of play, as you talk about, I know one of the things that you're focused on is the importance of also vitamin D, going out in the sunlight. How important is it for children to put the devices down, and for parents to assist in that and to get them outside?
It is very, 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 very important, very vital in the sense that play actually helps to regulate those chemicals and create endorphins so that that feel good feeling and regulated feeling will be there with the child. So parents shouldn't take away play from children, and they should encourage it. Teachers should encourage play, because that is how the child resets to come back into the classroom to learn. This is how the child at home is going to be regulated, and that emotional, some upset that may come, may be regulated through play. So play is crucial to a child's development. It's actually said to be the language of the child. And so opportunities should be made for children to play both at home and at school. And that regulating screen time should be a must in order to have children who are growing healthily, both psychological and otherwise.
And we recognize this as a challenge, right? We know it's a challenge, but it is to start.
It is. If it's not now being practiced in the homes, parents should really incorporate that somehow, where children go outside and they play and regulate their social skills and so on, and conflict management. All of that is tied up in play.
Dr. Bell,
Teamwork, all of that.
Dr. Bell, as usual, thank you so much. Short but spicy, and also poignant, because I think this morning you're speaking to parents on a level that I think it's critical. I think it's also urgent for us to begin to address these issues in our homes where we have children, and you say from baby to 18, right? You're looking at. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Pernell Bell. I hope to see you here again shortly.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure, Kabu. Thank you.
There's my brother. There's my brother, Naki Wailer, son of Bunny Wailer. How you doing, my brother?
I am feeling blessed and giving thanks to be on the big program. How are you doing?
Look here, man. You look like we good on here, son. You look like you are travel though. Where you there?
Yeah, we're there. I want to tell you, say, our tire shop we are going right now. You see me? Make sure it's the vehicle up.
Yeah.
We have a lot of errands to do today. You know, we're planning this celebration for the Kingman, Jaboni Wailer. So you don't know one bag of movements today.
Bunny Wailer, the man himself, Jabi. All right, so tell us about that. Give us a context, why this is happening now, and what is about to happen. And by the way, this is Naki Wailer, son of Bunny Wailer, on his way to the tire shop.
Reporting live from the tire shop, we have arrived.
You have arrived.
It's all about the 79th Earth Strong of Jaboni Wailer. April 10th is International Bunny Wailer Day. And we're having a series of events. We have a symposium. We kick off with a symposium at UE on Thursday.
Yes.
The likes of Dr. Kadamawi Knife, Carice Lawrence, Bongo Jerry Small, Dr. Clinton Hutton, man like Dr. Dennis Howard. We're going to do musically speaking with Dirty Bookman, Dr. Dennis Howard, and it's moderated by Dr. Elaine Wint. And then now the big show, Rootsman Skanking, which is the 9th edition of Rootsman Skanking, that's happening at 3 Greenvale Ave. That's a Mullins Road right next to Birds. And you know, so that's going to feature the likes of Bongo Herman, Bushman, Queen Ifrika. I hear Naki Wailer will be there in live and living color. We have Andrew Tosh. You don't know, we have to keep the family close. And we have a barrage of artists. Imaruta Farai, Samurai I, we have the younger, we have the content. Okay, you know, my father, you know, one thing we try to carry on his legacy of, he always provided a stage for the younger artists, and he always endorsed he always reminded and introduced the younger artists to the veterans.
Yeah.
So I know me know my history, and I know about Derek Harriott, and you know the show and them something there with man like all the greats, man. Like my father would always make sure we knew the music and we knew the history. So we still try to do a mixture of artists. We always try to do some foundation and some coming youths. All right,
and so tell us again who's going to be on the show. Well, so 2 things happening. One at UE. And
three things. Three things. So on Saturday is a football competition at Haile Selassie High School. So that's the third thing.
Okay, so, 3 things. All right.
Yeah, so that's 3 things.
Haile, the emperor, Mr. Miller likes Haile Selassie, I know me. We have to go rename Haile Selassie, I know, to HIM High. All right. So at the school, the Haile Selassie High School, that will be on what date?
That's Saturday the 11th.
Saturday the 11th. And tell us what the day will look like at the Haile Selassie High School.
So at Haile Selassie High School, they have a Haile Selassie park. So we'll be on the grounds of the school and at the park. They have a football like facility there. Nice park. Actually, a beautiful park in Painland. And we're trying to bring eyes to Haile Selassie High School because that is a foundation that Haile Selassie came to Jamaica and actually he left. Let's just say it was a rock. My father told me the story. He left on one rock, which is a gem, one stone. I could have a piece of gold. I don't know what it was, but it was to build a university. The school is what is the representation, and we are, as the Rastafari community, we're trying to ensure that the school is maintained at a level. You don't know, big up the Bob Marley Foundation, big up Solomon Productions, big up Rugo Roots, big up all the ones that's putting, big up the principal, because there's a lot of work going in now to keep the school up to date. So we're trying to bring all the attention there.
All right, so Haile Selassie High School on Saturday, and then at the University of the West Indies when?
Thursday, that's the day the 9th. So the University of the West Indies Neville Hall Lecture Theatre N1. So that's the Thursday. And then Friday, Rootsman Skanking. You don't know that's 3 Greenvale Ave. And that's going to feature Queen Ifrica, Bushman, Tristan Palmer. Yeah, I'm not left out Tristan Palmer. Chi-Ching Ching, can't left out Chi-Ching Ching. And a barrage of great artists, like I said, Bongo Herman, China Smith, and the China Smith Bingistra will be there.
Yes.
Yeah, man, and you don't know it's gonna be
Naki
a great.
Wailer.
Naki Wailer will be there. You know what I mean?
Give us a piece of Bunny Wailer before you leave, because you're done there already.
Rootsman Skanking. Hey, the Rootsman Skanking all night long.
Hey, Naki Wailer, but you know my favorite Bunny Wailer, right?
Hey, what's your favorite Bunny Wailer?
I have Wally, but anyway, give us a piece of Love Fire before you go.
Fire, fire.
I do that.
Fire, fire.
Yes, I.
Keep on burning on the Run in Africa program.
Eat that.
Yes, I.
Give thanks, Naki Wailer. We love it.
Love.
Inside of the Africa Forum, this is Running Africa, and we're on the eve of a new epoch. 500 years of European world domination is dead. It is what it is, and we're dealing with the isness of things. We're seeing ourselves in a new international world order, and this is unraveling as we speak. We're seeing the redistribution of power and the legitimacy that uphold or upheld this power. We're seeing that just literally falling apart. And one of the things that is really critical when we look at this is the extent to which the United Nations, for example, is decapitated and has become, if you will, irrelevant. We're looking at the UN agencies, UNICEF and UNESCO, you name them, anything that starts with UN, these are being dismantled. And the reason for that is simple. As Marconi said, the rules-based order has fractured, literally. And they represent part of that rule-based order. Donald Trump has said about NATO is, it's comatose. Professor Horace Campbell's book, I think, is relevant to all of this because he talks about the extent to which NATO had a catastrophic failure in Libya. And that, NATO has been tumbling downhill ever since that. The US is threatening to withdraw from NATO. The WHO is also being neutralized. The US unilateral hegemony that we have been experienced for such a long time, the global dominance, that is in decline. Our brother Darius Figueroa talks a lot about Pax Mexicana and Pax Americana. Pax Americana is dead. The other side of it is the New World Order. Africa and the Caribbean caught up in all of that. We have to ask ourselves some serious questions. about how we survive this. What does this mean for us as a continent, as a region, as a nation? The petrodollar is facing demise, if you will. Central banks are offloading treasury holdings, diversifying reserves. This is basically an ongoing situation as we speak. The deployment, as I have been blogging about in the social media spaces, the deployment is underway. This is not the planning phase. This is the deployment phase. And on the other side of this is transhumanism and technocracy. Simple. And maybe it's not so simple, because if we do not understand it, then we will not survive it. So we're watching this financial revolution that is being rewritten, the fracturing of the rules-based order. The existing financial order is devastated, if you will. All right, I know that there are many discussions in many different places about China and where China stands in all of this. Well, we have said this from time to time and over time and inside of time, that China is the rising power in all of this. As we look at rearmament, and rearmament is interesting because we saw this very same rearmament happening in World War II, the demise of the League of Nations, which is the United Nations, rearmament, and the new order. The fourth industrial revolution is what we're exiting. You know, we thought it was brief. It's an intelligent age. It's a whole new thing. And intelligent in the terms that it is being led by anti-intelligence. It's basically what it is. So we're witnessing this, and we're bearing witness to this. Where we go from here, what we do, is going to be pretty interesting. Truth is distorted. We are in the deployment phase. We're not in the planning phase. Truth is being distorted. Where do you find truth? And how do you find truth? So we're seeing this cataclysmic shift. And on the other side of it is a new world order. But are we prepared for it? Do we have water? This might sound like a very simple question, but it's a question to be answered. Do we have water? Do we have fresh water? Do we have land? Do we have farming land? What is our current agriculture situation? Thank you so much for joining us inside of the forum. A little bit I was telling you earlier about the situation in Senegal and what they are saying and doing in Senegal right now. But in addition to what's happening in Senegal, there is also an unfolding situation across the Africa and also the Caribbean. And there are some, I made a few notes, there are some African countries that are taking precautions. And if you look at your screens, for those who are watching us online, Peter is sharing some of that just now. Africa is not reacting differently. It is revealing the stages of the same crisis that we're talking about: the shock, the financial strain, the policy tightening, the public impact. Different countries are simply at different points at the same time. For Jamaica and CARICOM, this is a warning. I'm not quite sure the extent to which we are prepared, but these are not isolated events. We're seeing different stages of our own future, and this is playing out in other parts of the world. I suppose it's also playing out in Jamaica, but for now there's something that is almost sheltering or absorbing the shock. I heard that it was Petrojam. I'm not sure, but we'll see what happens. Malawi is also taking precautions because they're looking at some of the social outcomes that they're already experiencing. Ethiopia is showing financial strain, and Senegal, of course, has already responded. So when you combine all these countries, one truth becomes undeniable. The crisis is wider than the conversation that is happening. It's a systems conflict, if you will, the shock to the system, and it is system wide. So we have governments like Senegal tightening, the strings, if you will, by ensuring that people are not traveling, ministers are not traveling. Malawi and other countries have said that they're seeing the strain, and some are being absorbed by the population, but we are just watching to see where this go. In terms of state response, in terms of the economic management, in terms of the public impact. Ghana, Kenya, Tanzania also responding to the shock. This is basically as we prepare for the new world economic order or the new world order. I think for us, we have to watch, but not just watch. We have to take precautions and do a little bit more than that. We also have to ensure that we are ready for this financial strain. That question, the budget was read just recently. I'm not sure what is going to happen there. But we have to sound the alarm, There is so much happening that what we see happening in Malawi, in Ghana, in Tanzania, in Senegal, food prices are already soaring, transportation prices soaring, and this is reaching the street on the continent of Africa. The Horn of Africa, obviously under great strain. Ethiopia has already put a lot in place. Ethiopia said that there's pressure on its foreign reserves, there's strain on current stability, and Ethiopia is cautioning central bank about inflation. So people are talking about that. So even while we're saying the crisis is about oil, there's also a whole slew of impact that is happening to Africa and the Caribbean. I think for us, we're not talking about this enough. And as I said before, we can talk about this, but we also have to go beyond talking and to look at what is not being said and what is likely to happen. I don't want to see us turning to external financing because we're already there. And this is where a lot of these dying embers of the rules-based order will be latching onto countries like Jamaica. The IMF is one of them. The World Bank is another one. And we'll find ourselves trapped into something that is really meant to keep them alive. Jamaica did something back during COVID, right? And that's a CBDC. Now, at the time when Jamaica did it, because remember I was saying that Jamaica needed to do this, right? During COVID, if you were watching, we were saying Jamaica needed to do this. And at the time Jamaica did this, I said that that was not a bad thing. I think that we have to balance the commentary, we have to balance the understanding of what is happening, and we have to balance the conversation. These are times that we've never seen before. Our dependence on tourism is wrong. Our dependence on tourism means that we are not prepared for the shock that is about to hit. Because if oil prices are rising, then fuel prices that carry tourists are going to be so heavy that tickets are going to be higher, that we're going to find that it's going to be harder for the very same tourists that we're talking about to travel. So I don't know how, there might be very, very short-term benefits because of what's happening now geopolitically, but in the midterm, it's going to change drastically unless the Strait of Hormuz opens up, and unless the escalation that we see. Donald Trump just spoke last night. I know we don't like to quote him around here, but so far, everything that he said that they were going to do, they have done. I don't care how you look at this thing, You can call him whatever you want to call him. He is not leading this process. he is front-facing this process. And every time he reads a script that is him don't ad-lib in the middle of it, then that is exactly what happens. Project 2025 is well underway. Agenda 2030 is well underway. It is strategic chaos that is well underway. And I think that we're waiting for something to change. As we argued here during COVID, that it was not going to change for the better when we come out of COVID, everything that they put in place during COVID has remained in place. And everything that they're putting in place during this period will remain in place and will be even more heightened outside of this period. So for Africa and the Caribbean, we have a duty to ourselves to unite in a different way. The European Union is fledgling, it is trying to survive. It's gone off to sign all kind of deals with Africa. They talk about a starvation that is coming, and the reason for that is because of what's happening with fertilizers. That even if the Strait of Hormuz opens today, the actions or non-actions, what has happened has already happened, you know. And so that has, to every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's basically what it is. So everything that has happened for the last 2 months, or since February 28 until now, the consequences of all of that, even if you're not feeling that shock right now, it is coming. It's like a wave, a tsunami that is bound to come. So farmers are already being impacted because fertilizer never did come through. And, you know, if you're looking at your screens now, you'll see where the World Economic Forum has released, yes, we're quoting them this morning because they're the one who say, you will own nothing and you will be happy, where they've released a series of other whether it's fertilizer or methanol or not just oil, but others in addition to oil that are being impacted right now that we're not paying, including our sulfur, that we're not paying attention to, which is already late. So that to every action, there is indeed an equal and opposite reaction. It is what it is. And no matter how it is planned, no matter the extent to which we say, you know, it's a new world order, the truth of the matter is that this thing is happening. It is ongoing, and the shock of it is already on its way to us. How are we preparing is a question. So I say once again, as I've always said in this space, agriculture, water, fresh water, agriculture. So it means that we're farming, we're planting short-term and long-term crops, and especially short-term crops right now, and we are securing our fresh water sources. Solar power, and do not cut down the trees them off of the hill for burn coal, because this is basically where we're heading if nothing changes. We're completely out of time, and I'll pick up this conversation with some of the experts, hopefully another time. But just to say that what is about to happen has already happened. This is basically what the situation is. And again, to underscore, I don't know how you say we're not in World War III. We are. And I gave you the list of names of the European nations that are already involved in this war. The thing that Europe is not involved in is that they have refused to send ships to the Strait of Hormuz. That's basically it. But majority, with the exception of Spain, including the UK, are already involved in this war. They are involved in this war. And then remember that there's also, you know, the Russia-Ukraine situation. We're still looking at what's happening with Cuba and Haiti and so on. So regardless of what happens on the backside of this, we know that we're moving into a new world economic order. We know we're moving into a new world order. What that will look like, we probably have a glimpse of it. But for those of us who understand that it will be technocracy and transhumanism, and we recognize this from 2019, when they told us that they were SARS-CoV-2, that, okay, we're moving into the fourth industrial revolution, and on the backside of that, we're moving into technocracy and transhumanism. As Elon Musk says, and it's strange to be going out with him, but as he says, it's calcification for those who do not change with them. Anyway, this is how we say goodbye. The Big A is in the house, and he's having his breakfast. I'm going to give him some time to do that. Hey, Big A, how you do? Well, there you go. Just a wave, because he has just bitten into that sandwich. Thank you, Peter. Thank you so much, Peter Broadba. Thank you, Antoinette. Thank you so much to Shanice, to the entire team. I'm not leaving anyone from the team.